What does it mean to be a Portuguese unschooler? And what is the Language Unschool all about? Now, I get asked that question a lot. People see unschooling and find it a bit, what is that? They're intrigued. So I thought it would be interesting to do a video and explain more the principles, the values, and how I tackle language learning. And this has a lot to do with my own experience learning foreign languages. So I'm Catarina. I'm Portuguese. I'm from Cascais, and I lived 14 years abroad. And for a few years now, I'm back in Portugal. And over the course of my almost entire life, I've learned 11 foreign languages. Now, some of them I only know passively. Some of them I studied a bit, but never really had to speak or was in a situation where I even visited the country. Some I do speak fluently. So I've had all sorts of experience with learning languages. And what they've always brought me was a better understanding of the world, something as simple as geography, or they have allowed me to know people, make friends, find a husband, understand my daughters who initially chose not to speak my own language. So all these experiences have enriched my life. And I know that by helping you find your voice in Portuguese, I know I'm increasing your chances of having a much richer experience in Portugal or in another Portuguese speaking country. So obviously learning all these languages has influenced me, but there was a particular experience I had in Brazil, which had a very big impact on me. But let's take step by step, okay? So the first one is I called my program holistic. So I cannot see language learning only about listening comprehension, even though I focus a lot on it. No, it has to be holistic, meaning you do need to include in vocabulary, you do need to include grammar. How is something I'll discuss later. You need to include reading, writing, speaking. All these elements have to play a role. Now, let me give you an example. A Dutch unschooler of mine living in the north of Portugal in a small place where hardly anyone speaks English. Once she shared this story, myself and other unschoolers, and it was amazing. So what happened was she listened in the course the expression "estão frio de rachar," which means it's a cracking cold, meaning it's really cold. Now, she thought it was new to her. I knew it wasn't. We had already talked about it, but repetition is needed when you're learning a language. So she had heard it, forgot about it because probably she never used it. And then she heard it again, heard it and read it because it was part of an audio text combination that I had in my program. So what did she do? So she had the listening, she had the reading, and then she added the speaking into the equation. She was in a situation with neighbors around, they were outside and it was cold. And she turned to them and said, "Estão frio de rachar." Everyone stopped on their tracks and was like, "Wow, you're becoming a true Portuguese." Because she was using an expression. It was not just saying it's cold. It was more than that. She could have stopped there, but then she would have been missing the writing element. So what she did was she wrote in our community of unschoolers and she shared this experience. And everyone was really like, "Wow, amazing," right? And really impressed. So by doing this, there was an added bonus. So she had used all the skills she needed, but she was actually teaching this expression to someone else who may have been in that position in the program to have heard it and read it, but maybe had forgotten. So reminder from a fellow unschooler and not from a teacher and a student. Or perhaps the person was not even in that phase yet. So it was new, but they were going to come across it, and then they would be able to relate that expression not only with the characters from the course itself, but also with this unschooler in particular. And that's how we make connections in our brain and never forget stuff ever again. Now, as I said before, listening first is key in European Portuguese because that's people's main struggle. The way we speak is not clear or doesn't seem to be clear, but when you're presented with the patterns and you do a lot of listening adapted to language learners, you're done. It's magic. It's like you have this fog and it just evaporates in front of your eyes, or should I say in front of your ears, and you start hearing messages with meaning. And you're not worried anymore with, they swallowed everything. Like, no, I think we do, but there's a reason for it. And once you recognize when we do it and you do put in the time listening, you're good. So one of the things in my program that I did was putting it very clearly what the patterns are of spoken Portuguese, so naturally spoken Portuguese, not what I call Cinderella Portuguese, because there's no point in enunciating things super clearly when that's not how people speak. Maybe in the news, in more formal settings, but usually no. And I created content that was both funny and engaging, really silly, to be honest. But that way, people would want to keep on listening to it and listening without subtitles, without a transcript, because once an unschooler of mine said, it's really handy that you have, when you have a transcript, because you can, you just copy paste it into an online translator. I'm like, oh gosh, no, no, we really need to just train your ears. And that is confronting and that is challenging, especially for more visual learners. They are used to just relying on the words, but then we're adults. We are going to just look at the word and forget about what we're listening to, how the word is being pronounced, the words are being pronounced. So what I did, I just like dumped the text, dumped the transcript and the subtitles, and I just have you listen. And the stories are funny so that you keep on wanting to listen. You're starting to acquire vocabulary naturally. You don't even know where you learned it. There was no effort involved. Of course, the more you repeat the stories, the more you can retain. But at the end of 4 or 5 weeks, people are listening to messages with meaning. They do not even rely on translation from English. What's the word for, I don't know, cartoon? No, they know the word for cartoon. It just comes automatically because they have this image of one of the stories. There's images involved and they have a little story around it, Tom and Jerry, and then they just say it. And the funny thing about this focus on listening is that people start speaking. It's sort of magic, but what happens is I've noticed throughout the years that typical people that come to me are people who are afraid of speaking. And they've probably paid attention to the fact that I'm focused so much on the listening. So they think, oh, probably I'm not subconsciously, right? It's not a conscious thing, but subconsciously they probably think, I'm probably not going to have to speak. She's not going to be put me on the spotlight and make me speak. But the fact is, when I remove the pressure from speaking and people have done the work on the listening, they will speak. The unschooling approach means there's trust that if you put the focus, the work on the listening, you will speak. Don't get me wrong, there is space where you do get to speak. There's focus on that, pronunciation and everything. But initially is just forget about the speaking, just listen. Now, I don't see myself as a teacher. At most, I'm a coach. Even my students, I don't call them students. I call them unschoolers. I'm an unschooler. Everyone at the Language Unschool is an unschooler. What does this mean? It means, okay, sure, you should listen to me. I'm the one with the experience. But what I say is listen to yourself. And sure, I'm here to guide people and help navigate this big task of learning a language. But so you're not alone, but you should not forget you're an adult. You're empowered. You have all the tools available, the guidance, what to do next, but you should take charge of your learning journey. So there is a mix of freedom with guidance and helping you see how you learn best. This is not working. Let's do something else. What do I want to do next? Self-evaluate. I ask the questions, you answer them. I'm not giving you the answers, okay? But a lot of people, when they hear this, they think, oh gosh, I'm not going to have someone on top of me telling me what to do each day. And I need that accountability. People use the word accountability. And believe me, there is accountability at the Language Unschool, just not in the way we are used to. I'm not going to be knocking on your door every day and ask you, have you done your homework? No, it's up to you. But what there is someone who you can ask for help. And there's a whole community of unschoolers that you can respond to and say, look, I've done this week. I managed. I said at the beginning of the week I would do this, and I managed. I even did more. I said I was going to listen to a podcast 1 hour a day. I listened to 1.5 hours every day. It adds up at the end of the week, right? Or I said I was going to work on something as simple as, I don't know, working on your pronunciation of the letter R. Now it's like amazing, a huge difference. Look at my recording. You recorded yourself and you share with the rest of us. That's accountability. You have someone, because I know that learning a language can be very lonely if you don't take a course, if you don't have a tutor. Some people try on their own. I mean, I've been there, done that, even a course online where it felt really, really lonely. All those self-paced courses, there has to be the human element. You have to be able to have contact with another human being, if not a teacher, a coach, someone that is in the same position as you are, and discuss ideas and show your progress, and all that. A lot of people tend to think, I think it's what they want deep down, but they tend to think I don't cover grammar. That the Language Unschool means, oh great, no grammar, just ditch the grammar book. It's not entirely the case, because the thing is, we respect everyone's learning style. I've had people who are completely clueless about grammatical terms. I have people who are obsessed about grammar, and they will first do the grammar and then look at, let's say, the language. And that's fine. There is flexibility to do either way. The point is, I do cover grammar, but that's not the focus. The focus is the language. That is always the starting point. The grammar is just there on the side to help you explain the logic of it, but it should not dictate where you're going next. You need to wish someone a good day. Now, that is more complex grammar. As a beginner, why would you go there? Now, the traditional setting, you have to follow the pages of the book, right? They are in order for a reason, which, of course, we need to always take into consideration. But you have proper guidance. Why would you not wish someone a good day, or not even understand the grammar around it, simply because that's not where you are. It's a linear way that a textbook normally is. Now, learning a language is not a linear process. It's cyclical. You have to go back several times. So repetition is needed, but not in the same way. I mean, if we're going to repeat the same thing over and over again the same way, obviously it's not working. So another thing I really like doing, I think is super powerful, is literal translation. We used to, certainly now with the option of an online translator that you just copy paste the whole sentence and poof, you get whole meaning. You know, back in the day, you had to open a dictionary and search for word for word. And I know that would just take much longer, of course. We didn't know any better. We didn't have anything better at the time. But what happens is, if I'm going to translate something in Portuguese to perfect English, it's not going to help me. I mean, as an adult, we're used to being stuck in our brains and we just want the meaning. Tell me the meaning so I can move on. But no, if I have something written in Portuguese and underneath I have it's raining cats and dogs, you're just going to be like, okay, it's raining a lot, I'll move on. However, instead of that, if I had written it's raining to pots, you would have been wondering, is that English? And I don't know it. As in, maybe it's not English is not your native language. Or you would have been like, wait a minute, has she made up an expression or so? Let me have a look what this is in Portuguese. And then you notice, she's translating it literally. So what that does is help you see how we express ourselves. So sentence structure, grammar, vocabulary, it doesn't matter, any of it, because now you know an expression. Now you know how to express a feeling, a fact. It's raining a lot in a very Portuguese way. And the Portuguese will feel like you're one of them when you say that. They will not bother about an accent you may have. I always like to say that bringing Portuguese close to you is really important. It's one of the things that we value at the Language Unschool, because normally we feel like, oh gosh, I need to learn the language. Perhaps you have to go somewhere and that, you know, it's all foreign and it takes a lot of time and effort. However, if you think of it as trying to see what interests you have, what stuff are you listening to, watching, reading, and try to just do it in Portuguese, it's a game changer, because it doesn't feel painful anymore. You're just slowly letting Portuguese into your life, and not just the stuff you're interested in, but also how you learn. And this is something that for me is really important to understand when people apply to the Language Unschool, to understand how they learn, because we're all different. And we know that at school, traditional school setting, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. Do you have a hearing problem? Do you actually need to make a drawing while people are talking to process that information? Do you need to do role play? All of this is important and really crucial when you're learning the language. It's going to stick better for you if the content, the information is adapted to how you learn. Now, these two things are really key in learning Portuguese, or any language for that matter, which is pattern recognition. A language is, after all, just patterns. And anything that feels overwhelming, like verb conjugation, all that, there are patterns there. The way we speak, there are patterns there too. It's just a good course, a good program, a good teacher will help you see and recognize those patterns. On top of that, then you need focus. So could be a focus every week, could be a focus for today, doesn't matter. But now you're working on, I don't know, present continuous. And then you go, okay, I'm going to read something. And then whoop, there it goes. Present continuous just in front of you. As long as you know the formula, right, the pattern, then you go, okay, I see it now. You're watching something and you go, there you go, heard it again. Normally, I've noticed that there's some sort of like law of attraction when you have this focus, when you put your mind to it, you start the word. Once we were working on the verb they shot, and everyone reported back saying, oh, I'm hearing they shot. I heard they shot all week, all around me. I went to the supermarket and someone said, oh, deixa-me passar. I was reading something, there it was again. So it's really, when you put your mind to it, it will come to you. And these two, pattern recognition and focus, will culminate into Iupiii. So at the end of the week, I always like to ask my unschoolers, what was your Iupiii? As in, hey, hooray, I did this. Because when you're in maybe first lesson of Portuguese, you know how to introduce yourself. Great. You go home, you go, okay, now I know this. Second lesson, okay, you know how to tell your age, where you're from, and all that. And after a couple lessons, you're just lost. You don't know anymore what it is you've learned, what you know. However, if you stop each week, 5 days, 7 days, and you recognize, how has my Portuguese improved? What is it that I did more than I couldn't last week? Now I can talk about the weather beyond just saying very literally, it's raining, it's sunny, it's cloudy. You can say more. You use an expression, estão frio de rachar. And that's amazing. It doesn't have to be a massive improvement. Like, you're not going to become fluent in a week, right? In a month. But recognizing those small steps will help you keep improving. So motivation always comes from you. It does not come from me. I mean, I'm always there to cheer you up. I'm always there to help you if you're feeling down. Okay, what should we do? Should we change strategies, change methods? I don't know. But it helps if you yourself stop and think, gosh, I understood what the waiter said. The last time I visited Portugal, I had no idea. And I only know because you taught me how we marry words together, how we speak in sounds, not in words. Okay, finally, I like to talk about Portuguese and I, as in, it sounds a bit odd perhaps, but if you think about it, Portuguese does not exist without you. I mean, what is Portuguese if you're not studying it, if you're not learning, if you're not hearing it every day? It's just a language. I mean, it has no relation to you. And this relation between the space between you and Portuguese is crucial. That's where all the tension is going to happen. That's where all the Iupiis are going to happen. That's where you're going to get closer to people. And really, this is not just about learning a language. Learning Portuguese is super confronting. Why? Because learning a language is the key to self-expression. If you cannot even say hello, you cannot answer exactly how you are today, you cannot even order a coffee properly, it's an issue. And that's why I sprinkle these mindset tips throughout my program, because I know people, very intelligent people, are going to feel down because they thought they could understand this, but now they don't, or because they want to finally, speak up to the level that they can in their own native languages, but they're not there yet. When I hear from unschoolers of mine saying that they had an hour and a half very deep conversation with someone they met 2 months ago, I'm like, there you go. It's possible, and you don't need me to hold your hand and do it. I'll be there preparing you for that moment. But then at some point, you have to let go of my hand and you have to go and do it. And it is possible. The best example I can show you is Prapti, but there's more within the Language Unschool, and everyone is walking towards that. So I hope it's now clear what the Language Unschool is all about. If you're interested in becoming a Portuguese Unschooler, then check the link below where you can apply and see if this is a good move for you.